Everyone, welcome to this regular called meeting of the Temple City Council. Please rise as Deputy City Secretary Liz Caraway leads us in the invitation, followed by our pledge, which will be led by City Secretary Jana Llewellyn.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, lay your hand upon this meeting tonight and give staff and city council guidance to lead. Fill them with wisdom and grace. Help them to remember your love and kindness and give them the patience and understanding to face the city's challenges with understanding and to have the foresight to make wise decisions, taking into account future generations. Father God, for our city, I pray for unity, safety, and well-being, as I thank you for the stability that we so often take for granted. May we experience the spirit of compromise and that the decisions made in this meeting and those from the past and those in the future will be a help to our city and residents. Help us to share in each other's successes and bless our plans, programs, and projects so that we may achieve our objectives to better our community. I ask these things in faith in your name. Amen.
Amen.
And to the republic for which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh. Thank you, ladies. Next is public comments. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so. When you're doing that, we ask you step to the podium and state your name for the record or raise your hand on the virtual platform if that's how you're communicating with us. So tonight we have a couple of gentlemen that would like to make public comments, and first we'll go with Mr. Alan Lytle. Want me to go with Bob Brown? We're looking forward to both.
Alan Lytle, I'm a resident here in Temple. And at the last local election, I voted. Unfortunately, I was one of the very few in Temple that did that. Less than 5% of our eligible voters came out for the voting. We're doing it again in May. I don't know what we can do about it, but there's got to be some way to get rid of the apathy in Temple and get folks to come out and vote. Thank you.
If you figure that out, let us know. Mr. Bob Brown.
Bob Brown, lived in Temple going on 45 years. I'm sure you've all seen what was on Facebook, City Watch Sunday. It's not about the bridge, but it is about broken brush pickup. My neighborhood, Area 7, is 3 weeks behind. I took 2 truckloads of stuff out, bags. I was shocked to find out that I had to buy 2 safety vests for $10 a piece. The first load was free. The second load cost me $30-something. I think this is something that ought to be waived if the people can't be there like last Thursday to pick up what needs to be picked up in the neighborhood. I don't think even when you get the new trucks this summer, you're going to get caught up. Because if we're 3 weeks behind, more stuff is going out in every area. So by the time they get to my area, it's going to be in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's going to be more stuff. That means Area 1's going to be behind, Area 2, and continue. I just wonder if anybody up here is really prepared for the future. We got a population of 100,000. Are you ready for 2030? With everything, with the police, fire, sanitation? Because we're probably going to have, what, 125, 130,000 by then? So we need to come up with a good answer to help the citizens of Temple. If you want, when sanitation says, can you bring it out to us where we don't have to pay? If we have to take more than one load out there and help the city do their job. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that would be a real anomaly that, because I know, Bob, I know you've called before and we've got a truck out there. I wonder if they're skipping, if somehow the driver's skipping the neighborhood, because oftentimes, I've never heard of 3 weeks behind. We are not 3 weeks behind. I know Friday, mine personally, Friday is my trash day. And it was, they picked it up Saturday morning. So,
This, oh,
oh, okay, okay, I'm sorry. I got you.
a neighbor called me, when does stuff go? I go, second, third, second and fourth Thursday. He said, okay, I'm gonna put the stuff out. I said, put it out. Good luck.
Okay,
And the next day I called the city and she said 2 to 3 weeks behind. They're on area 4 right now.
okay,
So by the time they get to area 7, it's gonna be 2 weeks.
okay, I got you. I'm sorry. Yeah, and I know brush and bulk is behind. And in that group of trucks that's coming,
New trucks, unless you run 7 days a week, you're gonna get caught up.
we will. We're working on it. Okay,
So, like I said, if they tell people, if you can bring it to them. I didn't mind doing that. I just didn't like getting charged $32 for the second load.
same. No, I'm with you and I agree with that. We'll look into that. Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry I misunderstood you there from the beginning. Okay, very good. Thank you, Bob. Anybody on the virtual platform? Okay. Let's move on, to item 3, which is a public appearance with a discussion regarding the progress of the Bell County Annex project. Is Miss Renata DeGreat here? No? Okay, no. Maybe she forgot. Okay, we will move on to our next item, which is to recognize April 6th through 12th, 2025 as National Library Week. You have the library folks here. Y'all come up. I've got a proclamation to read. And then we'll let you guys introduce yourselves and maybe, all right. You want to talk first? Or you want me to read the proclamation first?
Go ahead and read that first.
Got it.
That'd be good. Set it up.
Okay. So the proclamation is from the office of the mayor of the city. I don't know why I stood up. I think I always stand up. There's no one here for me. All right, so let me read the proclamation reads, whereas libraries offer the opportunity for everyone to connect with others, learn new skills, and pursue their passions no matter where they are on life's journey. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions, striving to ensure equitable access to information and services for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of the community, developing and expanding collections, programs, and services that are as diverse as the populations they serve. And whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries play a pivotal role in the economic development by providing resources and support for job seekers, entrepreneurs, and small businesses, thus contributing to local prosperity and growth. And whereas libraries make choices that are good for the environment and make sense economically, creating thriving communities for a better tomorrow. And whereas libraries are treasured institutions that preserve our collective heritage and knowledge, safeguarding both physical and digital resources for present and future generations. Whereas libraries are an essential public good and fundamental institution in democratic societies, working to improve society, protect the right to education and literacy, and promote free exchange of information and ideas for all. Whereas librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. Now, therefore, I, Timothy A. Davis, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim April 6th through 12th, 2025 as National Library Week. And during this week, I encourage all residents to visit their library and to celebrate the adventures and opportunities they unlock for us every day. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand in the seal of the city, and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this 3rd day of April, 2025.
Thank you very much. Very nice. Well, I'm Elizabeth Page. I'm Assistant Director of Libraries and Museums for the city. Filling in for Natalie Alvara, our director, who is at the American Library Association meeting this week. And that is the group that actually sponsors National Library Week. So we're very excited to celebrate that with you. This year's theme is Drawn to the Library, which is a perfect reminder of how libraries inspire, they foster belonging, and they bring people together, which is what we do every day. We see this every day at the Temple Public Library. And it wouldn't be possible without the passion of staff and volunteers. And we're very proud to announce that last year we had an 80% increase in the number of volunteer hours that were donated to the library.
Great.
So without that commitment, we would have to hire more staff. So we're really excited about that. These people, volunteers and our staff members, I'll have two here that will introduce themselves in a minute. They not only offer information, but encouragement and foster that belonging that we were talking about. And as we mark National Library Week, we want to recognize each one of them for that. They represent the very best in public service. So I'm very excited that we're celebrating this week, next week. So I want to also thank the mayor and the council members and the city manager and all the city colleagues that are here for their support, because we are very grateful for that. And we are grateful to be part of a team that serves Temple every day. So thank you very much. And I will let my colleagues introduce themselves. Would you like to introduce?
I'm Heather. I'm with the Technical Services Department.
This is Jerizette Rivera.
From Circulation.
Very good.
So thank you very much.
You bet. Thank y'all for being here.
Can we get a picture?
Sure.
You want me to? Me breathe? Oh.
Yeah, this is perfect. Get close. That's right here on 3, 2. On 3, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, moving on is a consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted in one motion. If discussion is desired by any member of the council, that item can be pulled from the agenda for specific consideration. We, council during workshop agreed that we would pull item L for voting purposes only. Is there anything else that needs to be pulled for further discussion?
If I might just speak on consent agenda item P really quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
Consent agenda item P does not need to be pulled, but it is an item for y'all to approve the appointment of our new assistant city attorney. He's here today, Mr. Jake Bandis. He is a graduate of the University of Utah School of Law and has a master's and bachelor's from Texas A&M and is also a graduate of Belton High School and has a family here in Temple. He comes to us from the U.S. Department of the Interior, Office of Hearings and Appeals. And through Utah's mandatory mentorship program, he had a mentor that was a city attorney in Utah. He's licensed in Texas and has recently moved back, and we're glad to have him here. And so if you have any questions, he's here today.
I don't know what I would ask you. I do.
What his last name means?
Yeah. Are you kin to John Bandis?
Yes, sir. It's my great uncle.
Okay.
And Bob?
Yeah, Bob Bandis.
Okay.
Okay. And they know you're back?
Yep, they do.
Oh, okay.
I've been back all about 2 days.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Well, welcome aboard. Yeah, we look forward to getting to know you. All right. Very good. So you're for approving.
I'm for approving. Yes, we are definitely for approving.
Okay. All right. Very good. Again, congratulations. Glad to have you. So council, at this time, I will entertain a motion on 5A through 5R, less item 5L.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda, items 5A through 5R, less item 5L.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote. 5A through R minus L passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item L. Item L is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing change order number 7 to the construction contract with RT Schneider Construction Company Limited of Belton for the Downtown City Center Phase 2 project in the estimated amount of $348,952.20.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Grant. Council, cast your vote. 5L passes 3 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 1 abstention. Moving on to the regular agenda is the first meeting in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning and a binding site development plan request from ag to plan development commercial on 5.358 plus or minus acres in a 1-lot, 1-block, non-residential subdivision situated in the William Haddon Survey, abstract number 392, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 5642 Pegasus Drive. Mr. Chandler.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. And so here is the subject property. It's a little over 5 acres, and it is on the west side of Pegasus, just south of Moore's Mill, and so which makes it also just a little further south from the section of outer loop that we are constructing now. And as was mentioned, the proposal is for rezoning to plan development commercial from agricultural for a proposed warehouse office project. Here's some site photos, currently farmland. And most of the surrounding land is either farmland or some larger kind of estate lot residential along Moore's Mill. And so the property was recently platted. As part of that, there was additional right-of-way required to be dedicated along Pegasus Drive. And we'll talk a little bit about Pegasus because the condition is not great. Parkland fees are not required because this is a non-residential development. Our Development Review Committee did review this on October 21st. And concerns about the condition of Pegasus Drive were discussed, and we'll talk about how we plan to address that. And that is through condition number 9. Then in terms of the mobility master plan, there are no conflicts. And just a reminder per section 3.4 of the Unified Development Code related to plan developments that the site plan is considered binding, and it also gives you all some flexibility to add additional conditions. And so here's the subject site plan. And so you can see there are 7 different buildings, and they're ranging in size from 9,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet with multiple tenants in each. The landscaping as shown and proposed, including along Pegasus, would certainly be required. One thing that I wanted to clarify from what we discussed during the council workshop is that they're meeting the 20-foot landscape buffer requirements for warehouse office, but what's shown in the site plan is the landscape buffering, but they're not proposing a fence or wall in addition. We did, after the workshop, I say we, Shelby, thank you, our case manager, did reach out to the applicant to see if they would be willing to consider an 8-foot fence-crete, precast concrete wall, and that's easy to install, low maintenance. We'd still need to have the 20 feet just grass, but instead of shrubs, trees. So it sounded like they were amenable to that. So y'all could consider either option. And looking at the thoroughfare plan, Pegasus is a future arterial. Utilities are available. And looking at the zoning map, you see a lot of green. So all that property on the west side of Pegasus is zoned agricultural. Now on the east side, you can see light purple, and that's light industrial. And so, but looking at the future development plan, this area is identified as future industrial. And so really, future expansion of the business park or industrial park. And 7 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. 3 returned in agreement. 1 returned in disagreement, and that is the kind of a state lot to the northwest, so residential use. All right, so here are the proposed conditions. A lot of them are standard, substantial compliance with the site plan. But the buffering and screening, per section 774B, which is, fence or landscaping. However, the the warehouse office does have the additional 20-foot landscape buffer requirement, which they are showing here. And then, of course, if you all decided that a precast concrete fence were more appropriate and for better screening, then the applicant is amenable to that. Also, the elevation at the top, substantial compliance will be required with that, and that includes 2 different exterior materials, a minimum. We can't tell them what those materials can be by state law, but we can at least just say that multiple materials are required. And also, I mentioned that Pegasus and just its road condition is a concern, that has been brought up by our Public Works Department, our fire marshal. And so number 9, and I apologize in advance, but I'm just going to read this because it's, I think, that important. I don't want to miss something. So in order to address the condition of Pegasus, as a group, we have agreed upon the language of the developer will be required to either, 1, coordinate with their engineering team and the city engineer's office to provide concrete and paving improvements to Pegasus Drive to address the impact of warehouse vehicles for turns, heavy loads, and public safety. Or 2, developer will be required to provide an engineering study to address concrete paving improvements, evaluate driveway entrance design for warehouse vehicles, and must implement the study's recommendations. So the applicant has agreed to this. And by the way, the applicant is online if y'all had any questions. And so just evaluating the various criteria for plan developments and looking at compatibility with the comprehensive plan. We're checking all the boxes. And so staff does recommend approval with the conditions previously mentioned, as did the Planning and Zoning Commission by a vote of 6-0 at their March 17th meeting. And happy to answer any questions. And of course, as I mentioned, the applicant is available too.
Mr. Chandler, when they were being discussed with about the Fence-Crete wall, was that all the way around it, or
It would just be
north
adjacent to
side?
the residential. So
the
where
north side, basically?
exactly. So where you see the trees and the 20-foot landscape buffer, it would be so western and northern boundary. And Shelby am I missing a
Just up
boundary?
against that lot where it
Okay.
says number 3 on there?
Yes,
Where
sir.
that big number 3 is?
Yep, that is correct. So that wall would replace the landscaping buffer requirement, but the 20 feet of
Stays.
of grass or whatever would still need to be required. It just, instead of trees or shrubs, it would be.
And that lot belongs to, there's a house, that's the house that's up there.
Yes, that is correct. So the neighbor that sent in an opposition letter, lives adjacent to that, and the buffering standards apply to to their family.
Do you know if have they been talked to about that? Would they really have
No, sir.
trees or
They,
fence?
I do not know. And I know we haven't talked to them because that was in less than an hour ago that had been brought up.
Probably visit with them before second reading.
Yeah.
We talked about this in workshop and I asked the planners to be very thoughtful about the development that's going in. I know there are just a couple of families along Moores Mill Road, but they are they're residents, you know, they pay their taxes just like the rest of us. And I want us to be very thoughtful about all the development that goes in around them. They do realize that they're in the industrial park and they're not asking for any special favors or to ask other people to move off, but they are asking us to just really think twice about what goes in and around. They've got a bunch of little kids and buses driving through there. So I want to thank you for doing that. And I'm sorry, I will also, we can also reach out to them and see if, I think the 8-foot wall, so Shelby, thank you for doing that. I think that would probably be a more immediate fix for them than waiting, you know, decades for trees to grow.
But along the south side, there's just gonna be the landscape buffer, which will be a 20-foot grass. It's not really a setback, and then some trees. So to me, the fence also provides security. They're not putting one on the south side.
I'd have to double check.
'Cause
Let
it
me just
basically
look at it.
You know what? It's not my development.
Right. But if it is, so to the
But,
south,
I mean, it's basically sitting in an open field with
Right.
no fence on the south side.
yeah.
Okay.
And yes, sure. And so we would at second reading would come back and just clarify too, because the use to the south, if it's also, I don't know I don't recall whether there's a house to the south currently. Okay, just to the west and
Yeah.
the northwest. So technically, the buffering and screening does not apply to the south, even,
Yep.
it's vacant property, because ag zoning is not considered residential use and or zoning district, and there's no residential use. So that's something that maybe they would decide to do that we're not necessarily requiring.
Well, so as it continues to develop out there and, someone buys the adjacent property and whether it's houses or another commercial piece, at some point, based upon the future use, would the fence then be required? If the commercial property was there first? I know that there has to
Right.
be a fence between, commercial and residential.
So that's a great question. I think typically the commercial use is there first and residential comes in next. It's not retroactive in which the commercial then has to put up the screening just because the future land use is showing this as industrial. But Charla, if correct me if that's wrong, but
So if it's residential, you would think they're gonna build a fence around the property, assuming that that's where the backyards are.
sure.
If another commercial developer came in, commercial use came in to the south of this one,
Mhm.
would that new commercial use then have to build a fence? Or you could have
No,
commercial
it-
use
it-
of
It all depends on what the next lot to the south, the lots to the west, whether those include residential uses that would trigger it. So, but yes, if there is a home 2 lots south and the lot, lot 1 to the south of this were to be developed for commercial, then they'd have to meet those buffering screening requirements too.
and all that, I don't know, we might be creating an issue that's gonna end up having to be dealt with later, but
Mhm.
they can deal with it later.
Our comp plan shows that as industrial use, doesn't it? So.
That's right. So the likelihood of future residential there is low,
Right.
but it could happen. It's just the market would typically, higher and better use would
Okay.
certainly be commercial.
Yeah. It's not something we're required to tackle now. That's just sort of future.
So something to think about.
Okay, thank you.
But because it is a planned development, wanted future or if you wanted screening in any other place besides what the code would baseline require, now would be the time to incorporate it.
Yep.
You wouldn't, you couldn't go back later and ask them to screen. And I think the property that's immediately south of this property. Owned by the same, it's two tracks, but it's owned by, there's a residential property below it. You can kind of see it on the screen there, just the small sliver of, I think that's somebody's homestead. So that property is owned. It's a separate parcel, but I think it's connected to a parcel that somebody lives in.
Okay. But that would be the time if you want to require it. And I understand the developer, right? These are not inexpensive things to do. And so if they don't, it's not required to put it up. And that concrete fence is not cheap either. So I get it. Okay, very good. Council, any more discussion? Anything for Mr. Chandler? Nope. All right, then I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. We ask you step to the podium, state your name, or raise your hand on the platform. Nobody on the platform?
No, sir.
All right, very good. Then at this time, I will close the public hearing. In council, I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
I move to approve item number 6 as presented with the stipulation that we ask the staff to talk to the adjacent homeowners about their preference of what we have now or the wall.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Councilmember Grant. Council, cast your vote. Just spinning.
Mayor, we would typically have this on the consent agenda for second reading. Is it council's desire that we put it on the consent agenda with the property owner's preference, or I don't know, Charlotte, if that's even possible, or do we need to put it back on the regular agenda next time? Since we haven't really decided on what the condition is today.
Yeah, I think if you're going to change the language that needs to be in the PD next time, that it would need to probably be on the regular agenda.
Right. Very good.
I just wanted to, my intention was to approve it with this vote as with the trees, but if we wanted to change it, then we would have that information. Does that make a difference with what you said, Brent? If we wanted to change it, then we'd pull it off consent. Yes.
It does make sense. I don't think that was I guess it was, because it said as presented. Yes, I think so. So if I think the only time it would need to be then on regular if we were recommending a wall instead of
Have a hand raised on-
Okay, very good. Thank you. I understand.
It's the developer. He's unmuted.
Pardon?
He's unmuted.
I'm Shree. His name is Shree Harvard.
Hi, this is Shrita here. I do have a quick question about the concrete wall, the fence which you are talking about. I understand the neighbors need or are willing to have a concrete wall, 8-foot or 6-foot wall. But however, the beauty of that would be completely ruined if there is a concrete wall when compared to trees and landscaping. Even at the same time, the second point I want to make is the house is not close to, not within the 200 square feet or 200 meters or something like that, right? It's even further. So, I'm okay either way, but what my request is, it would be nice if we have landscape buffering, and I'll put a metal fence, normal fence, entire property. But only this particular portion, if it is like concrete, it does not look good, even for the residents as well as for the complete property of the industrial park. That's my concern I have. But I do respect the residents. I don't want to disturb them. There is no walkway or any trucks which goes in that direction because I have the metal buildings planned at the 20 feet buffering, right? So there is nothing which drives there or anything. Anything which drives is within the buildings itself.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So
Switch up.
He knows too.
Yeah. I just saw a different face. I didn't- So, you talked about the house isn't within 200 feet, but the property line, right? With the,
That's right.
yeah,
So,
so,
you know,
yeah,
by the letter of the law, they were notified. They, you know, certainly have a right to respond, but I think he was just qualifying that to say the house itself is beyond
right,
that.
yeah,
But of
we
course,
understand that.
yeah.
And so I didn't fully understand. He said he was willing to do that, but the concrete fence takes away from the beauty of the back of these R-panel buildings.
I think he's saying that he would, from a developer perspective, they prefer the landscaping in that
Yeah.
location because we would not require both.
Right.
You know, we would require the distance and it could be 20 feet of grass.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't require the trees and shrubs if the wall is installed. So I think he was just expressing his preference, you know, from a developer's
Okay.
perspective to, it would, you know, look better in his opinion.
Right, right. And that's probably, I don't know, that may or may not be true. So, the city called the property owner in disagreement,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
Or the city called the developer and asked about
Oh,
the
right.
willingness to put a,
Yes,
fence.
that was today. And then we
Right.
will call the neighbor.
right, okay. So based upon that they will call the neighbor. It probably, that's another reason, I guess, probably for it to be on the regular agenda so we can get feedback. Or of course, we can do that in workshop too, I suppose, but. Or have we already,
Understanding is that we're going to put it on the consent agenda if the feedback from the neighbor is that they would prefer the landscape buffer. We're
okay,
going to put it on the regular agenda if the feedback from the neighbor is that they would prefer the concrete wall, and then you can decide at the second reading to which direction to go.
okay, Counselor, y'all okay with that? Okay,
So I'll provide that update at workshop.
okay, so based upon we've already taken the vote. So, okay. No, that's good. I needed that too. Appreciate it. So that's why it was okay that we had some, because we already voted on it, right? You didn't need to be there. Sorry. All right, moving on to item 7 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning request from ag to general retail on 4.9 plus or minus acres located in the Maximo Merino Survey Abstract Number 14, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas, addressed as 16803 Northeast HK Dodgen Loop. It says Brian Chandler, but Mr. Deckman will take you.
The one and only. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So as you see, this went to P and Z on March 17th. The applicant is Belton Engineering, and Ms. Lena Chate is here in the audience tonight if you have any questions. So this request for rezoning is out on the east side of town on the HK Dodgen Loop, also known as Loop 363. You can see on the overview map, it is across the road from Hector Garcia Elementary School. And on the aerial photo, you see that most land other than the school, it's, you know, a lot of farm fields, crops, undeveloped, and there's a maintenance shop, a mechanic across the road on the opposite corner from the school. There's also a couple homes to the east of the subject property on Lavandusky. So we've got a few site photos. So the upper left is the subject property itself. So it's fenced right now as that agricultural field. You've got a photo showing the condition of Lavandusky as it is now, looking across the road, showing the proximity to the school, and then that mechanic shop across the road. So it is currently in ag zoning. It's 4.9 acres out of a larger 74-acre tract. As I mentioned, the surrounding areas, you know, crops, homes, and the school. They're proposed for a convenience store, or as they show on the site plan, a travel center. So there'd be fuel sales, other retail uses. There's a second building on the site plan. So there's a number of uses that could go into that. We'll discuss that on the site plan. Note that most convenience stores or travel centers and gas stations do sell alcohol, beer, and wine, which is allowed by right within the base GR zoning, subject to compliance with Chapter 4, which is you have to be 300 feet away from a school. They're not. They're at about 293 feet if you go property to property line, which is what the code requires. We'll discuss that on the site plan and show you how they plan to address that. 363 is a TxDOT roadway, so they are going to regulate any access to the highway. The site plan shows two entrances, one on Lavandusky and one on the highway. They've been having discussions with TxDOT. Right now, they're showing a right in, right out. But based on results of discussion, if TxDOT will allow them, they may do a turn lane. So there'll be a center turn lane. They'll pay for the striping expansion of the pavement. That's going to be subject to the TxDOT permit for their entrance on the highway. And their entrance on Lavandusky Drive, that's what drove staff to recommend this to be a planned development. With the proximity to the school for the alcohol sales, the access to both roadways, and the need for improvements on Lavandusky, staff worked with the applicants, and we want to make this a planned development. It needs a little bit extra scrutiny and reassurance. They agreed with that, so we moved forward as a PDGR. So let's work through the site plan. From the top, you see the two buildings for the travel center and the secondary retail building, 8,000 and 3,000 square feet, diesel and gasoline pumps on the side and the front and parking all around. You can see the access off of Lavandusky, and what they're doing, we've asked them and they're agreeable to widen Lavandusky, add some turn lanes at the entrance to 363 to match the configuration on the opposite side of the road. So what's already there works. Let's mirror that. That'll allow for turn lanes in and out, left turn, right turn. And you see the arrow on the bottom in blue where it says 293.6 feet to the school property. The code requires the measurement from property to property line for retail sales or a school. The measurement for a church is different and more complicated. It's always to property line for a school. And what they're proposing, you see a blue line down the middle, is if council decides to approve this rezoning, they would move to the subdivision plat. They would divide this into two lots so that the lot where the convenience store is located is then outside the 300-foot radius. And then the retail store would have other retail sales that would have nothing to do with alcohol. Note that there are some longer parking spots on the side, although the applicant said they don't intend for this to be a truck stop. They're calling it a travel center. But that would allow, they've got the diesel pumps, longer vehicles, RVs, trucks pulling trailers could pull in there. They'd have adequate parking so those folks could go in, purchase the same things from the convenience store that the regular folks in a pickup truck or car would purchase.
Are they still going to allow fuel sales to semis?
I don't believe there's any distinction of who they're going to sell to. They're not a Buc-ee's, if that's the question.
Hard
Right.
time getting in there.
Yeah, getting in and backing out.
Yeah.
Just seems like we're not a travel center, but look, we have these long parking
Mhm.
places over here in case you need to, that's all.
Is there anything in this to stop them from overnighting there?
We will get to that. It's a great question. We've got, as the old saying was, we have an app for that. We have a condition
go.
for that. And then last, I'll point out that it is on septic. That septic area is shown on the left-hand side of the site plan. And that's because of the distance from the available city utilities on the other side of 363. The water's 500 feet away and the nearest sewer is 1,100 or 1,400 feet away. It's quite a distance. So they're exercising the option to install a septic system for the travel center. So here you see the utilities. The blue is the water, the green is the sewer. As I mentioned, several hundred feet away. They will be working on extending that water line, but due to the cost constraints, and we spent some time talking about that at workshop, the code states that 500 feet, if you're within 500 feet of a sewer line, you have to connect. They're well outside that. So they're taking the option to use septic for now. On the thoroughfare plan, Lavandusky is a community collector, so their improvements will bring it up to that standard. And then 363 is a highway. The future land use plan shows the convenience store side as employment mixed use. The school is in corridor mixed use, and then the other corner is residential and neighborhood services. And as you get away from that corner, there's some other nearby residential development. We did do a traffic analysis to try to guesstimate the impacts of a gas station or other retail uses that might go into this site. There's two ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineer codes that you can use to come up with a calculation. Both use the number of fueling stations, around 2,000 trips a day, regardless of which way you categorize it. Most convenience stores or travel centers do have some type of restaurant. Maybe a McDonald's or maybe some other chain franchise. So we did calculate that may be possible either in the travel center or in the secondary retail building. But the applicant pointed out that, a lot of the fast food isn't going to work on a septic system. They're just going to generate too much waste, too much FOG that's going to clog up the septic system. But they might be able to put a coffee shop or something that's lower impact restaurant, maybe a sandwich shop would work, whereas something that has deep fryers or a commercial kitchen isn't going to be. And it may not be a restaurant at all. It may be some other retail business. They don't have a tenant identified at the time. So it could be a bank or some other type of retail store. This may be a good time to point out that there's some discussion on the plan development conditions of limiting what that tenant in that secondary 3,000 square foot building may be. Councilmember Walker, you discussed that at workshop. State Loop 363, based on our comp plan, a major arterial would handle 20 to 40,000 trips a day. The current nearby volumes are around 9,000. So there is still capacity for that. There are improvements for the turn lanes, or a center turn lane would certainly address the turning movements in and out of this business. And then safety analysis has not been a crash hotspot to date. But you can attribute that to the fact that other than the school, there are not a lot of other businesses, not a lot of traffic being attracted to this area. So there's not as many turning movements at the intersection. Intersections, as we know, are where you see more of your crashes. That's where the conflict points are. That's where people aren't paying attention and they rear end the person trying to make a left turn. Of the ones that we did have a crash, 4 were distracted driving, which I mentioned, the not paying attention, and 2 were speeding and 2 were other not categorized. So we did send out 5 notices for public or to the neighboring property owners. Mentioned at the beginning that we did have some homes nearby. Ms. Mays had responded in disagreement. Her property is shown by that red D just off the corner on Lavandusky. We did receive a response in agreement from the property owner because his property extends further to the north. Like I said, this is 4 acres out of that 74. He did respond in agreement, but we call out that the owner of the property that's asking for the rezoning is in agreement. So that's worth drawing attention to. And the newspaper printed the notice on March 6th. So the applicant initially requested a straight rezoning from agricultural to general retail. Staff does not recommend approval of the straight rezoning as requested. We recommend approval of a planned development general retail with the site plan subject to the following conditions. We presented these to P&Z on March 17th. There was some discussion and there was an additional condition added for the overnight parking. So I'll walk you through the conditions. So number 1, compliance with the site plan. Number 2, that it's on the applicant to figure out how to keep any alcohol sales, that property line greater than the 300 feet. That they are required to make those improvements on Lavandusky Drive to mirror what's on the other side with the turn lanes and widening the pavement. They will have to submit the subdivision plat. They are required to install sidewalks on both street frontages, and that's per the thoroughfare plan from the UDC. Given that there are homes to the east of here, they are going to have landscaping, buffering, and screening in compliance with UDC Section 7, requiring the TxDOT approval for that entrance on 363. The condition that came out of the discussion with P&Z is to limit the business hours from 6 a.m. to midnight and then to prohibit overnight parking. The concern that came out of that discussion was that if there are truckers or other people that are traveling and decide that's where they're going to pull over and rest for the night, if you have a CDL, there's a certain amount of hours you before you have to stop. What's to stop them from going into the store, buying a 6-pack, and tying one on in the cab of the truck while they're parked here? pretty much agreed that's a bad idea. So the way that P and Z decided to address that is add the condition for the overnight parking. Staff continued the discussion with the applicant who reached out to the owner and said, how are we going to really make sure that we've got reassurance? They offered to limit the business hours. So we've added that to that condition because it addresses the same root concern. Minor variations of site plan can be approved by the Director of Planning and Development. Significant changes would come back to P and Z and to you here. So that completes the presentation. I know there was discussion at workshop, so I'll open up for discussion. Any questions y'all may have.
Jason, would that number 8 enable the police to go run somebody off if they're parked there after hours?
I would look at chief, but I'm going to assume the answer is going to be yes.
If they had a criminal trespass affidavit, yes, sir.
Anything else?
Yes, I wanted to see if I could add a limitation prohibiting a standalone smoke shop for that little GR section on the side. We kind of missed the mark at another elementary school, and one popped up, and I think we need to be cautious and put that into this.
Yes, ma'am. Agreed.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Walker, I think that the code references those as vape shops. So that would be my recommended language to use. And then Brian also confirmed for me that tattoo, credit access business and body piercing studios are already have a distance restriction from school. So you wouldn't need to address those, just the vape shop.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Council, anything else? All right, item 7 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak may do so. Please step to the podium or raise your hand on the platform.
Good evening, Alan Lytle. Just a little confused. You said that the nearest sewer was 1,100 feet away, but the school is only 300 feet away. What's the school on?
The school has, and it may be a little bit hard to see. There's another line that comes down North 50th Street. Their lateral line runs across to North 50th.
Oh, okay.
That's even further away from the one that we measured, which is up there on the corner of. It's not Lewandowski on the other side, and I'm drawing a blank.
Me too.
Not French. Is it Lewandowski? Am I having a brain cramp in public?
Could be.
It's Lavandusky on that
Highly
side too.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I don't know
Thank you,
why,
sir.
I don't know why I was thinking, but
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alan.
easily confused.
Anybody else from the audience? Me on platform? Okay.
I did have one. I know I'm beating a dead horse. Chief said they would need to have a criminal trespass order. Can we put that as a condition that they have to do that?
It's a criminal trespass affidavit that's generally filed. I would have to defer to legal on, because that's a property owner's right to either choose to do that or not to do that.
Which is what, if they choose not to, then that really has no teeth. So
Well, there are
You-
other enforcement opportunities for us. It just, I think, wouldn't be through citations through the law, through chief, but because it would be a land like zoning action. So you would, you still can enforce it. It just wouldn't be police enforced.
It would be enforced through
them warning that if they stay, they're
the zoning enforcement action.
But
Not
does
through
this
the police.
state, would this need to state that, that we don't allow overnight parking? It just says that their store's closing.
Well, I think that was part of the added condition, was that it was only operable until midnight and that overnight parking was disallowed.
It does say that.
I believe so.
So if they allow overnight parking, then we would take a zoning enforcement action against the property owner.
Okay, I had forgotten it said.
And the
that-
property owner could cure that by working with us to do trespass affidavits. If they, if they've got someone parking on their property that shouldn't be there, they can they can enforce it through the police department. But if they're allowing it, then we have to go to our enforcement action is against the property owner, not the people parking there.
I'm good with that.
But that also means that you couldn't immediately through PD have someone removed, right? If there's someone there parked there at 4 o'clock in the morning, that would not allow the police department to roll up and ask that person to leave.
Right.
Right.
We have to notice they were
wouldn't-
doing it, tell them to make people stop, and the way is to do that. And
The criminal trespass allows immediate action on the person there at that time. While through zoning would then delay with action against the landowner. Property owner. Okay,
Well, the property owner would have to file a criminal trespass affidavit with the police department.
against that specific person
just in general.
who's in Florida by now.
I just don't.
The
want
answer is
people
no.
coming
The
across
answer
that.
is no. There are some other ways that there can also be some trespassing violations also in state law. So there are some possibilities for enforcement if the property owner wants to pursue that as a means for moving people that they don't want there.
But with this, it's still all on the property owner, except for us telling them, hey, you've had a lot of people parking here, you need to do the criminal trespass affidavit. Correct? It doesn't immediately solve the problem if the property owner doesn't file that and we're not making them. By this.
I don't
Know
know
that we
you
can
you can
make
them
them file a criminal trespass affidavit as a condition to the PD, if that's what you're asking.
but you can enforce the PD condition on them, which would motivate them to do.
But we need to make sure that we watch them to enforce this.
Well, they can't. Okay.
Okay. Everybody straight? Nobody on the platform still? All right. Anybody else? I don't believe I closed the public hearing. Anyone else in the audience? All right, then at this time, I will close the public hearing on item 7 and council entertain a motion on that item.
I will make a motion to approve the rezoning from ag to general retail PD, adding a condition of prohibiting a standalone vape shop.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Walker with conditions. We have a second by Councilmember Grant.
Mayor, just for clarity, I think we probably know the answer to this, but Mayor Pro Tem Walker, your motion included the additional condition added by planning and zoning as well, related to the overnight parking and the hours. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, good. So I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. I have a second by Councilmember Grant. Council, please cast your vote.
I was gonna say, I think there's something wrong. Aye.
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 Aye. Item 7 passes 4 votes to 0. Item 8 is first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending the classification of certified police officers. Ms. Raymore.
Good evening. So a little bit of background, Chapter 143 requires that council establishes by ordinance the classifications in both police and fire departments, and that includes the number of positions in each classification. So our request tonight is to, the police department is wanting to transition from 12-hour shifts to 10-hour shifts. And a big part of that is the work-life balance of police officers. So as part of that, we're asking to decrease the number of police officer positions in that classification and increase the number of sergeants and corporals. Essentially, we're going to be reclassifying a police officer position to another rank of corporal with this action, but the action that you're taking for the ordinance is decreasing 1 police officer and then increasing the ranks of sergeants and corporals and the minimum staffing needs in order to switch back to the 10-hour shifts.
So our recommendation is approval of this request by ordinance to decrease the police officer positions by 1 and increase our sergeant and corporal positions by 1 each. And this will have a final agenda item on the next council meeting on April 17th. And then this just shows you what the counts will be after this action, if approved. So we will go up to 21 sergeants, 19 corporals, and we'll have 116 police officer positions after this. Happy to answer any questions, and Chief is here too for any questions that you have.
Yeah, thank you. Counsel, anything from Ms. Raymore, Chief?
I think it's wonderful. I'm glad we're finally able to do this.
And finally up to full staff. Everyone needs to know that. Well, I mean, I know it's day to day. We're not 20 down. Thank you.
Mayor and council, just this also involves taking 2 positions that are currently performed by sworn officers and moving those sworn officer positions to patrol and replacing those with civilian positions that are over our evidence processing and logistics, like vehicle and facilities and things like that. So it provides greater, it's a more efficient and fiscally responsible way to handle those, and some recent or upcoming retirements are making this an ideal time to do that. So this entire process is adding 1 sworn sergeant, as Tara mentioned, but it really nets us 2 corporals and 2 sergeants to complete that staffing level that we need for the 10-hour shift and 10 patrol district initiative. And Chief's team worked really hard on that to present an option that we could do mid-year that was fiscally possible, but that let us move forward with that. And Tracy and her team have done also really have been really helpful in finding ways to get that funded, so we didn't have to wait till fiscal year 26 to get that implemented. So and then the funding through the public safety assessment through the reinvestment zone is also helping us accomplish this. So lots of teamwork to bring this to fruition. So thanks to all those, and assuming you all vote yes, thank you to you all for your leadership on this as well.
If I know that's something you've been working on for at least a couple of years,
5
trying to
years.
get back to 10 hours.
5.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. Council, any thoughts or questions on that one? I don't think anybody's allowed to vote no on this.
Right.
So, yeah, you may be off council, but I will entertain a motion on item 8.
I'll move to approve item 8 as present.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington, a second by Councilmember Grant. Council, please cast your vote. Item 8 passes 4 votes to 0. I'm sorry. Congratulations to all involved. Good job. We appreciate the good work. It is now about 10 minutes after 6. Thank you.